Horrible rules to follow when renting a room. They say the desert doesn't forget. Everything you bury here, pain, secrets, blood, it all rises again. Maybe that's why I ended up in Raven's Hollow. Not just for a paycheck, but because some part of me needed to face what I'd buried. Before we get deep into this, let me warn you. This isn't your typical horror story. This one's different. Because I lived it. And when you finish listening, maybe you'll understand why I've never left, not really. The old Ford pickup groaned like a dying animal as it bounced along the cracked dirt road. Dust exploded in golden clouds behind me, each jolt sending a metallic screech through the cabin. The sun over Arizona was merciless, burning down with the fury of a desert god. The air conditioner had died years ago. All I had now was a weak dashboard fan blowing heat back in my face like some cruel joke. The truck's radio was silent. Static had taken over somewhere back in Gila Bend. No service, no GPS, only the humming vibration of tires over broken earth. Now, let me pause here. You've probably heard of ghost towns, abandoned mining outposts, crumbling motel skeletons, roads that don't lead anywhere. Raven's Hollow wasn't like that. It was worse. Because Raven's Hollow pretended it was still alive. A few lights, a couple of people, maybe even a store if you squint hard enough. But the life there, it was borrowed from something ancient. My name's Sawyer Montgomery, 35 years old, petroleum engineer. 12 years chasing oil across the American Southwest from the freezing rigs in North Dakota to offshore platforms off the Gulf. I'd survived explosions, weathered lawsuits, and come out the other side with a few scars. The worst one ran from my left temple to my jawline, a gift from the Texas rig explosion 2 years ago. Clearwater Energy was the only company still willing to touch my resume after that. So when they offered me 40% over my last job to survey a potentially promising site in central Arizona, I didn't ask questions. I just said yes. I was broke, I was tired, and honestly, I didn't care where they sent me as long as the paycheck cleared. The house looked like it hadn't been touched in 60 years. A tiny wooden thing crouched under the weight of a rust-red roof. Sunday blistered paint peeled off like old skin. A single rocking chair sat on the porch, swaying gently in the wind. Behind it, an old stone well, covered with a warped plank. It looked like it had been placed there half-heartedly, as if someone knew it wouldn't help. I shut off the engine and stepped out. The heat punched me in the chest like a furnace. Cicadas and other desert insects buzzed in strange rhythms, not chaotic like usual. This felt orchestrated, like they were playing a warning. Then I heard a voice, soft, raspy, close. I jumped. A woman had appeared behind me, thin, old, her gray hair coiled tight like wire. Her skin was the color of dry driftwood, eyes clouded with a milky haze, and she was dressed in black wool. In this heat, Adelaide, I asked. She nodded once, slowly. I've been expecting you. Without ceremony, she handed me a folded envelope, my rent. I offered it. She didn't check it. Instead, she handed me another paper. Older, yellowed, soft as dried skin. These, she said, are the rules. I laughed. At first, but she didn't. Not even a twitch of humor. Read them, follow them. Your life depends on it. Sawyer reads aloud. Do not go outside after 7 p.m. If you see movement in the well, turn around and recite, I am grateful. Raven's Hollow remains in balance. If someone knocks after 9 p.m., do not answer. Say, sorry, I've already gone to bed. Water can only be used between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. After that, it changes. If you see shadows in your home and you're alone, say, I've been given permission to be here. Never use electric light outdoors after dusk, only oil lanterns. If the voices begin, do not respond, no matter what they say. I looked at her, confused, maybe a little insulted. These are like ghost story rules. But Adelaide wasn't smiling. You can believe or not believe, but follow them either way. Others didn't, and they're still here. Here's where most people would walk away. Rules written like campfire horror tales, a haunted well, shadow people. But what if I told you that in small American towns, rules like these exist hidden in local superstitions? Take the Appalachian Mountains. There are towns where folks leave bread on the porch so the whisperers don't come inside. In Alaska, some remote cabins have mirrors turned toward the walls at night. These aren't urban legends. They're traditions, survival rituals. So maybe Raven's Hollow wasn't just crazy. Maybe it was old. Too old for our logic. As I brought my bags inside, I checked my watch. 6:58 p.m. The cicadas had stopped, just like that, as if someone had flipped a switch. I stood in the kitchen. No electricity, just gas lines and old lanterns. I lit one and waited. Then scratching, from the back of the house. Sharp, slow, like claws on wood. I froze. The well, the rules? The first one, do not go out after 7 o'clock. And just like that, 7 p.m. clicked on my watch. The lantern's flame flickered as someone knocked. I lit the oil lantern and turned the wick down low. The shadows in the corners danced like silent figures watching me. No electricity, no phone, no distractions. Outside, the wind had stopped. Not slowed, stopped. The kind of silence that makes your ears ring like they're trying to fill the vacuum with something. Anything. I set my duffel on the table. No television, no fridge hum, just creaking wood and the faint sound of my own breath. I checked the list of rules again. My eyes kept drifting to number 3. If someone knocks after 9 p.m., do not open the door. Say, sorry, I've already gone to bed. The phrasing was odd. Say that you've gone to bed even if you haven't, as if someone or something needed to hear it said out loud. I sat in the only chair by the front window and listened. The lantern hissed softly. Shadows curled around its flame. And then I noticed it. The time, 9:01 p.m. That's when I heard it. Knocking. It wasn't frantic, it wasn't soft. It was deliberate. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 more. The sound of a human knuckle against old wood. I froze. My hand gripped the lantern tighter. My body wanted to run, but my legs refused. Then a voice. Sawyer, it's Jack. Open up, man. My heart dropped. Jack Brennan was my coworker. We worked together on the Midland rigs. We'd share beers, bad food, and worse motel beds during a week-long surveying job last year. Jack's voice, clear, friendly, familiar. But Jack wasn't in Arizona. He was in Houston. Come on, man. I forgot you were stationed out here too. Weird coincidence, huh? I didn't answer. I stared at the door. My mouth went dry. Then my phone buzzed. 1 bar, barely a signal. I tapped it open. Text from Jack Brennan. Hey brother, just landed in Austin. You good? Heard the news site's remote. I looked back at the door. Knock, knock, knock. The voice got closer, clearer. You all right, man? I thought I heard something in the well earlier. Should we check it out? That wasn't something Jack would say. Not like that. Not with that wrongness in his voice. It was trying too hard to sound casual, like reading a script of how friends talk. I stood trembling and followed the rule. Sorry, I said, voice cracking. I've already gone to bed. The silence was immediate. No footsteps, no goodbye, just gone. But I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I stood there lantern in hand until the clock said 10:30 p.m. This is one of horror's oldest and most effective tricks, turning the familiar into something sinister. We trust the voices of people we know, our family, friends, co-workers. That voice at the door sounded like Jack. It used his cadence. It referenced our shared past. But there was something off. Slightly misaligned, like someone watching a YouTube tutorial on how to sound human. In folklore, this is known as mimicry lore. Across cultures, Native American, Norse, even Southeast Asian, there are legends of beings that mimic loved ones. Skinwalkers, doppelgangers, Penangalan. In psychological terms, this taps into the uncanny valley when something is almost human, but not quite, and our brains know it. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat by the door, the lantern burning low, listening. The knock never came again, but the house whispered. The wind outside didn't rustle. It spoke. By sunrise, the world seemed normal again. The insects resumed their chaotic buzz. The oppressive stillness lifted. A breeze returned, rustling through the mesquite outside. I stepped out into the daylight. The house looked less sinister now, tired, sure, but ordinary. Maybe I was just exhausted. Maybe the desert heat and my brain had cooked up some elaborate hallucination. I went to the well. The rotting plank still sat over the mouth. I could smell something from below, brackish water, maybe. Or worse. A crow landed on the porch railing, stared at me for a moment, then cawed 3 times and flew off. I should have left then. I should have called it. But something kept me there. You might wonder, why would anyone stay after something like that? Simple. Humans need patterns. Even scary patterns are better than randomness. We convince ourselves, if I follow the rules, I'll be fine. It gives us control. Like walking through a minefield with a map, the danger becomes bearable as long as we think we can navigate it. I had rent to pay, a job to do, and maybe in a twisted way, I felt like I deserved it. The fear, the isolation. After all, I walked away from that Texas rig explosion. A dozen others didn't. Survivor's guilt is a powerful thing. Later that day, I walked to the back of the property. The sun was high, shadows short and sharp. I kneeled by the well, careful not to touch the plank. The stone ring was carved, not concrete, carved like someone had chiseled it from volcanic rock. There were strange symbols along the rim, not writing, not art, more like warning glyphs, primitive yet intentional. I leaned closer, not enough to break rule number 2, just enough to feel the temperature drop. That's when I heard it, faint, barely audible, a whisper, my name, Sawyer, soft, from below, like it was being carried up through water. I shot back instantly, recited the line. I am grateful. Raven's Hollow remains in balance. The wind picked up behind me. The insects stopped again. But the voice didn't return. Names hold power. Across cultures, naming something gives it form or reality. That's why so many rules across folklore include the instruction to say something aloud. Say you've gone to bed. Say you have permission to be here. Recite the balance. It's not just superstition. It's a psychological tool. Speaking aloud grounds you. Declaring reality, like a ritual, reinforces it in the mind and against the unknown. That well, it wasn't just old. It was hungry, and it listened. And somehow, I knew it remembered names. By the 3rd day, I stopped checking the time. My internal clock worked just fine. When the insects stopped buzzing, that meant nightfall. When the wind began whispering instead of howling, that meant it was time to light the lantern. I'd gotten good at staying inside, following the rules. But rules are hard to follow when curiosity starts to rot your brain. That morning, I was in the backyard near the well. Just a glance, I told myself. Just a quick peek. I didn't move the plank. I didn't touch anything. But I got close enough to hear something I hadn't before. A scraping. Like something being dragged in circles. Like nails on stone. Like something waiting and pacing. I stepped back. 5 feet, then 10. Then it stopped. The silence afterward felt like it was watching me. I turned, started walking. Then a creak. Behind me, the plank had shifted. Just an inch. Just enough for me to see blackness beneath. But in that blackness, eyes. 2 pinpricks of reflected sunlight. Too far down, too human. I froze. I didn't blink. And then a hand. Pale, small, like a child's. It reached just to the lip of the well and stopped. No attempt to climb, just resting there. Like a reminder, we see you too. I backed up, heart hammering. I couldn't breathe. The rule. I scrambled in my head. If you see movement in the well, turn around and say, I am grateful. Raven's Hollow remains in balance. I hadn't turned around. I'd watched. I looked right into it. So now I turned my back, squeezed my eyes shut, and whispered it. I am grateful. Raven's Hollow remains in balance. Once, then again, and again, my voice broke the 4th time. I didn't turn around. I walked straight inside. When I shut the door behind me, I didn't hear the insects return. I didn't hear anything at all. Not until 9 p.m. when the knock came again. But this time, it didn't use a voice. No fake jack. No friendly tone. Just knocking. Hard, fast, constant, and from more than one spot. The front door, the back window, the roof. I curled up on the floor with the lantern beside me, reciting the rules in my head like a mantra. I have been given permission to be here. I am grateful. I've already gone to bed. For over an hour, the knocking didn't stop. It just moved door to window, to walls, to the floorboards beneath me. Then, one final knock at the front, followed by a whisper right outside the wood. We remember. Let's pause here. What do we know so far? Something is beneath the well. It can mimic, but it chooses when. It responds to rules, but also punishes violations. That implies intelligence, not just haunting, not random. We're dealing with something bound and aware, like a tethered deity or an ancestral curse. The symbols around the well aren't decorative. They are containment glyphs, old magic, desert magic, magic born from sacrifice and memory, which means someone put it there, and someone's job is to keep it down. The next morning, I found Adelaide waiting on the porch. Same black dress, same dead eyes. She said nothing at first. Then simply, "You looked into the well, didn't you?" I nodded. "Did you recite the balance?" Eventually, she closed her eyes. "Then you've invited them. Who are they?" I asked. Adelaide turned her head toward the backyard, like she could see straight through the walls. Not demons, not ghosts, remnants of us, of what we left behind when we made deals with things that should never have been known. She pulled something from her coat, a worn, leather-bound journal. "Each tenant leaves their mark. Read it, know where you stand." She handed it to me and walked away. Entry number 14, the 7th of April, 1998. It tried to speak to me in my mother's voice. I didn't answer. The next day, I found my mother's wedding ring outside the well. Entry number 22, the 10th of August, 2003. There are more than one. I saw them fighting, like shadows against moonlight. One warned me, "Don't listen to the voice from the well. It lies." Entry number 31, the 12th of October, 2008. My brother stayed here before me. He didn't leave a message, just a nail scratched into the wood floor, a spiral. The entries went on, dozens of them. Some were frantic, some resigned, all of them afraid. The final page had one line. The 7th rule is the hardest. You will want to answer, you will want to believe, but they are not who they pretend to be. This part of the story turns the horror inward. We're not just dealing with creatures anymore. We're dealing with psychological erosion, the memory of what people left behind, their guilt, their grief, their need to hear a loved one again. The creatures don't attack with claws. They attack with hope. That's what makes it worse. They learn your weakness. They find your grief. They use it against you. Every tenant before me left behind a version of their story, but none had stayed, except Adelaide. And I wondered how many of her memories were her own and how many were borrowed from whatever lives in the well. That night, I pulled back the rug in the center of the wooden floor. Scratched into the planks was a spiral, deep, angry, done with purpose. I traced it with my fingers, not just a drawing, a symbol, a lock, or maybe a map. I tried to match it to the journal's entries. No luck. Then I turned to the back page. There, scrawled upside down in rushed ink, "The spiral turns at the sound of your name. Don't let them say it twice." That was the last thing I read before the wind returned and the well opened again. I woke up around 3 a.m. to the sound of whispering. It wasn't outside. It was in the room with me, just beyond the circle of the lantern's glow. 1,000 voices, whispers folded into whispers, some calling out, some laughing. And then, clear as breath, "Sawyer." I sat up. "Sawyer." Twice. The warning from the journal echoed in my head. "The spiral turns at the sound of your name. Don't let them say it twice." Too late. I stumbled out of bed, lantern in hand, and pulled the rug back again. The spiral in the floor was glowing, faintly, like red embers under ash. It spun. Not physically, it was still carved wood, but in my vision, it moved. I couldn't look away, my eyes locked onto the center. And then I heard her. Marin, my fiance. She died 2 years ago in a highway crash. We'd been fighting when she left the house. I never got to say goodbye. Now she was in the room. Or something pretending to be her. It wasn't your fault, she said. You were scared, I was too. I felt tears run down my cheeks. But the spiral kept spinning, faster now. Sawyer, she whispered again, come with me. Let's talk about spirals. They're ancient symbols, in nature, in ritual, in religion. They represent cycles, life, death, rebirth, or madness, infinity, repetition, descent. The spiral in Raven's Hollow wasn't decoration. It was a key, one that opened something when the correct sequence was activated, in this case, by hearing your name twice. That's a clever trap. You can't avoid hearing your name. If someone says it, you respond instinctively, reflexively. The spiral latches onto that moment, and once it turns, the voices find you. I should have known better. Her voice was too perfect, too measured. No tremble, no pauses. That's not how grief speaks, that's how mimicry works. I said nothing. I crouched by the spiral, repeating every rule I could remember. I've already gone to bed. I have permission to be here. I am grateful. Raven's Hollow remains in balance. But her voice continued, it's so cold where I am. They said you could save me. And then, come to the well. My body stood without my permission. My hand reached for the doorknob. But something stopped me, not fear, not rules, anger. You don't get to wear her voice, I said through my teeth. She was real. The air in the cabin twisted. Cold slammed into the room like a wet cloth, and the spiral snapped dark. The next morning, I opened the journal again. I noticed something strange. The leather inside the back cover had a flap, hidden, sewn in. I pulled it loose. Inside, a single folded note. The 7th rule is not written because writing makes it real, but you'll know it when the time comes. It is the only one that costs you something. There was no signature, only a thumbprint in red ink or blood. Below it, scratched in pencil, do not believe the voice that begs. That night, I didn't light the lantern. I sat in the dark. No whispering came, no knocking, just wind, inhuman wind, coming from inside the walls. The planks moaned and bent inward like something was pushing them from the outside. And then I heard something behind me. A spoon clinked inside a ceramic mug. Marin's old habit, stirring tea 3 times, then tapping the rim twice. Always the same. I turned slowly and saw her. Not a ghost, not a shade. Her, in her denim jacket, sitting at the table like nothing had changed. I stepped forward. She smiled. You're almost ready. And then her face changed just for a second, flickered, like static over a memory. When horror stories turn psychological, it creates a new layer of dread. Not just what if something's outside, but what if the danger is inside my mind? Sawyer is seeing things that match his grief, his guilt, his regrets. The spiral is the catalyst, but the fuel is himself. This isn't just a haunting, it's a test. Every rule is a gate, every voice a trap. And the 7th rule? It may not be about staying alive. It might be about choosing what you'll give up to keep others safe. At dawn, the spiral had changed. It now had 3 rings, not 1. And in the center, scratched in fresh wood, say no to her. That morning, I found a new note pinned to the inside of the door. Not from Adelaide, not from the journal. Just a scrap of torn paper. In handwriting I didn't recognize. You have 3 nights left. After that, the rules change, and so do you. I'd slept for hours when the scream came, not outside, not in the desert, but from the back of the house. Sharp, feminine, agonizing. I bolted upright. The lantern lay smashed next to my bed, shattered glass, hot oil soaking the floor. I stumbled to my feet in pitch black. The only light came from the moon, a pale disk through the window. I ran toward the back door. "Adelaide?" I whispered. No answer. Silence stretched. Then, thump, thump, thump. Heavy footsteps coming from behind the well. I emerged into the night, heart pounding. The desert hummed around me, cicadas deafening now that fear had woken them. Under the well's rim, a shadow crouched a figure I knew. The writing in the journal described her. Renter number the 14th of April, 1998. They'd said she disappeared. Now she was kneeling, head bowed, a thick, dark stain across her rags in the earth. As I drew closer, the wind stilled again. She looked up, not eyes, black pits. Her lip moved. No voice came. She opened the well cover. Moonlight glistened on something red. Blood pooled inside. I staggered back. Something rustled inside the darkness below. Something slithered. What makes this terrifying isn't just a ghost's closure. Survivors left a story unfinished. This woman was caught between worlds. Raw sorrow, raw violence. Decades later, she returns not as memory, but as manifestation. Her guilt, her fear, her death, all pooled into that well. This is no haunting, it's an indictment. Behind me, the wind picked up. Sand whipped across the yard. I heard the sound before I saw Ida metallic clink. A hand touched my shoulder. I spun there was Adelaide, her face grim. "I warned you," she said quietly. The whisper of wind became silence again as she led me inside. Then, no breeze, no clock ticking, no light, blackout. The house plunged into void. Silence, then footsteps. Slow. 1, 2. Something stopped at the top of the stairs. I held my breath. The lantern burst to life moments later, warm but weak. Adelaide was there, holding a ritual knife, curved, old, ornate. The blade was dulled with age, but the edge seemed ready. Her hands trembled only slightly. "I was your age," she said. "When I first lived here, I broke a rule, looked into that well too long. They spoke to me, offered me peace." She stabbed the knife into the wood floor just beside my foot. "Do you hear it?" she asked. I did. A faint murmur, all around from floorboards, walls, even underneath. Adelaide closed her eyes. "The 7th rule is the most dangerous. It costs you what you treasure most." Across cultures, the hardest rule is always about letting go. You can survive hunger. You can survive cold. But letting go of love, a memory, a name, that's a sacrifice only grief can demand. Think of Miss. Orpheus looking back and losing Eurydice. King Orin forgetting his oath and losing his kingdom. The 7th rule wasn't about staying alive. It was about surviving with your soul intact. The next night, the lantern illuminated the spiral on the floor. 3 rings pulsed softly, responding to my heartbeat. Then, at 3 a.m., a voice from the well whispered, "Sawyer." I sprinted outside. The moon was full silver. I leaned over the well and saw nothing. Then I felt breath on my neck. "Come," it said. "They're waiting." I stumbled away. The writing in my mind replayed the hidden message. "Do not believe the voice that begs." That morning, I found a note under the spiral carving, tacked into the wood. It read, "The 7th rule, don't answer the last voice. No signature, no name, just that." Under it, another line scrawled in blood red. "Lose the love, you lose the echo." I dug out the journal's older entries and found one about a ritual. It said participants should pour sand in the spiral, then burn sage and carve a protective sigil around it. I gathered desert sand, a piece of limestone, and earth's bitter sage from my emergency kit. I rubbed the spiral with sand, pressed into every crevice. I lit the sage. The smoke curled upward, then collapsed inward like something swallowed it. I carved a new spiral around it, 8 points this time. The writing in the journal said, "This may hold it back, for now." The ritual ended. I collapsed in exhaustion, hope mixed with terror. Since cleansing the spiral, I've slept or tried to for maybe 2 hours a night. Sleep is no longer rest, it's a war zone. During the day, the desert offers no relief. The sun scorches, insects mock, and wind whispers secrets in languages I don't understand. During the night, I dread closing my eyes. I'm awake now, writing this in the dim glow of my laptop. My hands shake. Every keystroke makes me wonder, am I documenting my survival or my breakdown? Small things have started to slip. I remember closing the back door, then find it ajar. I'll swear I drank coffee 5 minutes ago, but the mug is empty and cold. My phone notifications, texts from friends, zero response. I respond, but the messages don't change to sent. Another thing, reflection. The window behind me right now shows someone even when I'm alone. Brief, peripheral, a dark figure that vanishes when I turn. Am I sleeping? Dreaming? Sleep deprivation is a weapon. The body and mind turn on themselves under constant stress. Thoughts fragment, senses distort. In survival studies, even 72 hours without sleep can cause hallucinations, paranoia, memory loss, and I'm well past that. One late morning, Adelaide approached as I sat on the porch. She sat beside me, said nothing. Then, when I was young, maybe 20, I lost someone here. My brother, he lived in that house before me. She pointed inside, but I couldn't look. He survived the first spiral, but he listened one too many times. He tried to speak to them. Her eyes closed. I waited, but nothing came. She opened them again. He's still here, waiting. I found a trapdoor in the floor, hidden under a rug. Creaked as I opened it. A narrow stair led down. At the bottom dust, broken chairs, papers, a desk. Folders labeled monitor, AZ, lined the wall. Names, dates of tenancy. I flipped to letters MO. One entry. Maren Jensen, my fiance, dated the 3rd of June, 2018. My chest tightened. I stared at the page. Subject hears voices. Describe desire to return home. Not same when she returned. 17 minutes later, she screamed. No body found. No body found. Another folder. Audio recording. I pressed play. Static. Then Sawyer. My breath caught. Saw. Cut. My hand shook. Was this previous Maren? Did this place reach out to her? Did it have our names? This place keeps records, observes, manipulates. It collects people like trophies. Raven's Hollow doesn't just haunt individuals. It hunts their most intimate attachments. The journal said the 7th rule costs you something. Maybe it's your loved ones, your reflection, yourself. That night, the power flickered. The lamp died. In the dark, I staggered to the living room mirror. My reflection was off. My eyes darker, smile wrong. Hair wet though, I hadn't moved. Not you, I whispered. The glass rippled. My reflection smiled back, lips moving, but no sound. I smashed the mirror. It shattered. The pieces glinted under moonlight like broken promises. I'm writing this now with a flashlight. Something is coming. I don't know what, but when I tested the well this afternoon, water was different. Black. Thick. I couldn't touch it. And I found a recording on my phone though. I don't remember making it. My own voice. They say, "We'll take you home, don't answer." They sounded like you, Mar. After the mirror incident, I found it hard to move. My body was heavy, but curiosity and fear kept me breathing. Under the bedroom floorboards, beneath a rotting plank near the bed, I discovered an old letter sealed in red wax. It was addressed to the last tenant. Handwriting, jagged, slanted, ink bleeding at the edges. If you're reading this, it means you've lasted longer than most. I didn't. This place isn't cursed, it's hungry. Don't follow the sounds. Don't answer the door. The well is a mouth. It speaks lies. And when it calls you by your real name, run. Signed, E.C. Eck. Names matter in folklore. In many cultures, to speak your true name is to bind your soul. Names in Raven's Hollow are whispered, stolen, mimicked. When the voices called me Sawyer, it was unsettling. When they called me Jude, my middle name never spoken, aloud it chilled me to the bone. They knew more than me. It began around midnight. The familiar hum, then the whispers, then a chorus. A low vibration ran under the house. My floorboards creaked in rhythm like breathing. I grabbed the oil lamp. I shouldn't have gone outside, but I had to see it. The well was glowing. A pale blue light pulsed from beneath the rotten wooden cover. It flickered like bioluminescent fungus, but colder. I heard it say, "We remember her." I backed away. "We remember you." I dropped the lamp. The oil spilled. The flame caught. A fire roared across the desert grass around the well. Blue light met orange flame in a terrifying dance. But it didn't burn. The fire touched the wooden well covering nothing. It hissed and vanished, like steam swallowed by ice. Then a figure, rising from the well, not climbing, floating, translucent, its arms outstretched. No face, no feet. I turned and ran. She stood at my doorway when I got back. No knock, just her silhouette, unmoving. "Did you look?" I couldn't lie. I nodded. "Then you must listen to me now." She handed me another paper, smaller, torn from an old notebook. New rule number 10. On the night the well glows blue, someone must be taking her, something must be given. "What does that mean?" I asked. Her eyes glassy. "It means one of us won't be here by morning." This aligns with sacrificial lore. In ancient desert tribes, wells were often seen as portausto, other lands, or other states of being. You feed the weller, it takes what it wants. Was I the offering, or was it Adelaide? That night, I returned to the cellar beneath the trapdoor. I brought my recorder, a hammer, and matches. The light down there natural. But there was no lamp. Instead, etched into the stone walls, symbols, spirals, circles with lines crossing through. A single word carved repeatedly, balance. On the far wall, a hatch, rusted shut. I forced it open. A tunnel. Cold air drifted from it. I followed. Underground tunnel systems beneath houses are not uncommon, especially old frontier homes, used for escape, storage, even ritual. But this one was different. It felt alive. Walls pulsed slightly, the sound like heartbeats, and then the smell salt water and blood. The tunnel led to a chamber. Inside, photos nailed to the wall. Polaroids of past tenants. Dozens. Names I recognized from the folders. And one of me. Taken last night, I realized. From the hallway. My face blurred, my outline distorted, and beneath it written in black ink, "We choose you." I hardly slept. My heart raced non-stop. The tunnel, the visage of that spirit above the well, the photos behind the cellar wall of it, screamed an ending was coming. I had two choices, run away or face whatever waited beneath that well. I chose the latter. At dawn, I gathered supplies, water, cigarettes, lighter, a coil of rope, the ritual knife, a flashlight, even though it broke the rules, and the journal. I taped pages together, folding them like talismans. Adelaide watched from the porch. She said nothing, just nodded. I descended into the cellar, heart pounding so loud I could hear it echo in the stone walls. I forced open the hatch near the cellar wall, the one behind which a narrow, jagged stairwell led deeper into darkness. My flashlight flickered, beam trembling. The air grew cold and damp like a cave. At the bottom, there was a small opening, just large enough to slip through. I crawled forward. Water dripped rhythmically. A dark pool lay ahead. The air smelled of iron. Ahead, steps carved from smooth stone, slick with moisture. I followed them down, gripping the journal and rope, mentally reciting prayers I didn't believe in. The stairs opened into a chamber vast and circular. Stalactites hung like dead teeth. The walls shimmered with veins of black, mineral-like ink within rock. At the center, another well. Older, wider. Its mouth echoed lightlessly into a hole at its bottom. Other well-small shafts surrounded it, like tributaries feeding a river. And on the walls were symbols, spirals, circles, trianglisa geometry of implicit power. The journal warned me about this room, that the echo lived here, the being that absorbs grief, then demands tribute. Across cultures from Native American trickster spirits to Greek imps, there are legends of echo deities, entities that mimic grief and memory, then ask a steep price. They reflect your pain back at you, and then demand more sacrifice, memory, life, identity. Raven's Hollow's echo is one such creature, no doubt. I edged closer to the well's rim. Shards of broken Polaroids littered the floor, half buried in mud. Then I heard her voices soft, echoing cavern-wide. Sawyer, Jude. Two voices, overlapping his first and middle names. One calling to me with regret, the other with sorrow. Under the spiral, the air rippled. My grip on the knife loosened. I stepped forward. Stop, I growled. I won't answer. No flame, no echo. I flicked on the flashlight rule, be damned. The beam showed a linear crack in the stone floor leading to the well's lip. At that moment, an earthquake shook the cavern. Water splashed. The cave roared. My flashlight died. I was plunged into darkness. I heard footsteps behind me, a voice breathing. They're waiting. I spun, knife raised, ready to strike the darkness. A pale, dripping figure emerged from the well's shadow, thin, tall, with elongated limbs, no eyes, just smooth, featureless flesh. It moved toward me, its arm extended. I remember hesitating. Then I recalled Adelaide's warning, a sacrificial trade or exile. I swung the knife. It passed through emptiness. No, I screamed, and it vanished. I collapsed at the well's edge. My mind spun. What did Adelaide mean? Do I trade something? My life? My sanity? My thoughts drifted to Marin's folder, her photo, my grief. Overwhelmed tears blurred my vision. I made a decision. I placed the knife on the cavern floor, hilt upward. Then I took the Polaroid of Marin, kissed it, and left it beside the blade. The cavern fell silent. Everything stopped. Then a soft wind blew through, closing pathways behind me. I rose and retraced the steps back, rope in hand. I staggered out of the cellar as the first light of dawn slanted through the cracks in the porch. Every step felt like wading through mud. My palms were sticky, my face raw with tears I didn't know I'd shed. I paused at the door, lantern dangling at my side. The spiral, the knife, the photo, I'd left them all behind in that cavern of grief. In an instant, everything behind me both mattered less and meant more. I stepped across the threshold. The desert air hit me like cold water. I turned to look at the house. For the first time, I felt relief. In folklore, when you pay the toll, something changes. Not all demons vanish, but they shift. They respect the act of sacrifice even if they're the ones exacting it. What I did in that hole might not have been enough, but it was something. It was choice. I found Adelaide on the porch, staring at the well. She didn't say anything. I climbed the steps quietly. Finally, she spoke. Heard the wind stop, she said. They're quiet. I nodded. My voice was croaky. I left something for them. She closed her eyes and nodded. Good. In that moment, something between us shifted. I saw her not as landlord or guide, but as fellow keeper. The house felt different, lighter, like something had been lifted. I poked at the spiral. It was just wood again, no glow, no pulse. Even the well seemed quieter. The plank looked less rotted, the stones less stained. It was a before and after moment, and I realized this place didn't want tenants forever. It wanted stories. Ours was ending. I took out the journal for the last time. I added my own entry. I left a piece of my grief in the underground cavern. I don't know if it will stay there eternally, but for now it rests. Whatever lives below will remember me, but it won't know why. These rules saved me. Obey them if you follow. Sacrifice enough if you stay. I'm leaving this place empty for now. I signed it final tenant. I stepped outside. Dawn had painted the desert gold. The wind picked up, dry and cool. Adelaide stood on the porch's top step. She handed me a small envelope, no address. Inside, a new piece of paper. Rule number 11, when a tenant leaves, they must light a candle in the well and walk away. No tears. She looked at me. No tears. I nodded, understanding. I reached into my bag, pulled out a match, and struck it. The flame danced. I set it gingerly at the edge of the well. I walked away. No looking back. Each step felt louder in my head. At the road split, I paused. The house sat behind me, steady, silent. No knocking, no whispers, just wind moving dirt across the road. I turned, kept walking. 3 weeks later, I'm back in Phoenix. The sun is hot. The city drones with noise cars, people, distant sirens. My phone buzzes. A message from Clearwater Energy. Sawyer, report due. We need data from Ravens Hollow. I read it, took a breath, then typed back. Send data, I'm done. I lock the phone, stand, and head outside with a cold beer. It tastes like freedom. But sometimes, late at night, I dream of the well. I dream of Marin smiling, echoes whispering my name. But I don't turn back. This story isn't just horror, it's about listening to your grief and choosing how to carry it. The rules of Ravens Hollow weren't red tape, they were survival guides. We all have wells within us, places of memory, loss, love that call to us when we're alone. And sometimes, the only way out is to leave a piece behind. Take your grief, place it down, walk away, and maybe, just maybe, you'll survive the night. It's been months now. Ravens Hollow feels like a dream. I barely survived, half myth, half memory. But when I wake in the middle of the night gasping, I know it was real. Every rule, every echo, every choice. You might think this was a ghost story. You might think it was about monsters or curses. But to me, Ravens Hollow was a place built by grief and fed by it. Let's talk about those rules. They weren't just creepy instructions. They were metaphors for boundaries we all need when navigating trauma. Don't go outside after 7 p.m. because some nights your thoughts will try to take you. Stay indoors. Don't look into the well because staring too long at your grief will pull you under. Don't answer the door late at night because not every voice that calls to you is your friend. The rules gave Sawyer structure when the world offered chaos. And that's what good horror does. It gives form to the formless. Let me tell you about a man named Jorge, a war veteran who survived 3 tours overseas. He came back with PTSD so intense, he wrote rules on sticky notes around his apartment. Don't watch the news after 6 p.m. No mirrors in the bedroom. Light a candle before sleep. Never sit with your back to a window. To outsiders, it seemed absurd. But to Jorge, these rules kept the shadows in his mind from winning. His story mirrors Sawyer's in a powerful way. We all need a ritual, a way to contain what threatens to overflow. Ravens Hollow was literally and metaphorically a grief engine. The well was a depth of sorrow. The rules were coping mechanisms. The haunting voices, unresolved memories calling us to self-destruction. What we saw wasn't just horror fiction. It was a representation of mental illness, loss, and the ritual of healing. Sawyer's scar wasn't just physical. It was internalized loss, walking with him into every job, every silence, every night alone. And only when he confronted it without breaking the rules could he find clarity. So here's your takeaway. You are allowed to set rules. You are allowed to light a candle and walk away. You are allowed to not look into the well. Some things, some losses will whisper to you forever, but you don't have to answer. Let the stories stay where they belong. Behind you, below you, written down but not relived. And remember, if the door knocks late at night and a voice sounds familiar, you don't have to open it. Let it knock and walk on.